The office was unusually quiet that week. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, but instead heavy. Suffocating. Since Gao Tu submitted his resignation, Shen Wenling hadn't slept properly for days. His nerves were frayed, and his temper had grown sharp, cutting at anyone who came too close. One afternoon, in the middle of yet another restless day, his frustration finally snapped. "Is there anything else you want? Don't bother me if you have nothing to do." His voice rang out cold and biting, the sound echoing against the walls of his office. The young secretary standing before him flinched. Her hands trembled as she tried to remain composed, offering him the cup of tea she had carefully prepared. Shen Wenling took a sip and instantly spat it out with a look of disgust. "Is this foot-washing water?" His voice dripped with contempt. The secretary paled. "No, Mr. Shen, this is Shuling Xiang's Phoenix Dankong. I only drink boiled white tea." Shen Wenling interrupted, his brows furrowing. "Is this your first day at work?" The poor secretary's eyes burned red as she bowed in shame. She had only been on the job for 3 days, and already she felt as though she were drowning under the weight of his expectations. Inside, she cried silently, "Woo woo woo." "Secretary Gao, come back quickly." But Gao Tu was gone. When Gao Tu handed over his resignation, Shen Wenling had reacted as he always did, with cold cruelty. "Hand over your work within a month and then you can leave. Gao Tu, no one will be separated from the earth. If you can turn, go." His words were sharp, decisive, merciless. Because when it came to separation, Shen Wenling was better than anyone else at adapting. He had mastered the art of letting go. Or at least, that's what he always told himself. After all, wasn't he abandoned the day he was born? His own mother, an omega who used her pheromones to seduce an alpha for survival, had left him without a backward glance. Abandonment had been Shen Wenling's first lesson in life, and he never forgot it. To him, separation was normal, common, a reality he had accepted since childhood. Happiness, on the other hand, belonged only in fairy tales. That's why he always claimed he hated omegas. He hated their scheming, he hated their dependency on alphas, and he hated himself most of all for feeling sadness and anxiety, simply because one beta named Gao Tu had decided to leave. In his mind, it was supposed to be simple. As long as he pushed Gao Tu out of his office, out of his sight, then he would naturally be out of his mind as well. But life rarely works that way. The new secretary, clumsy, scatterbrained, utterly incapable of handling even the smallest tasks, only served to remind Shen Wenling of what he had lost. Every mistake, every failure only deepened his frustration. Because compared to the incompetence of others, Secretary Gao had always been perfect. He knew exactly when to speak and when to remain silent. He knew how to soothe his boss's temper before it exploded. He had been there, always there, like a steady presence that never wavered. And when Shen Wenling gave the order for him to leave the CEO's office, Gao Tu obeyed without complaint. Within an hour, he had neatly packed away his few personal belongings and moved to the secretary's office downstairs. No fuss, no hesitation, just quiet obedience. Shen Wenling stood by the window, staring at his retreating back. And in that moment, his chest burned with something he didn't want to name, because he knew. No matter how much he tried to delay the work handover, no matter how much he tried to keep him close, in the end, Gao Tu would still leave. He had already made up his mind. In the past, Shen Wenling would often laugh at the comparison. Gao Tu, the loyal secretary who followed him everywhere, was like a tail attached to his body. The world might wonder why someone as powerful, as handsome, as commanding as Shen Wenling would tolerate such a clumsy tail at his side. But secretly, he found that clumsiness endearing. The loyalty, the quiet presence, the way Gao Tu never once abandoned him. That was what made Shen Wenling, who had grown up knowing only betrayal, feel safe for the first time in his life. And perhaps that was why he had assumed, foolishly, arrogantly, that Gao Tu would never leave, that he would follow him forever, that he would never stand before his desk with a resignation letter in hand. But reality doesn't bend to assumptions, it breaks them. The day Gao Tu submitted his resignation, Shen Wenling's world tilted. That beta, always with his head lowered, always speaking in a soft, hoarse voice, couldn't even look him in the eye as he said the words, and yet his resolve was unshakable. He was leaving, and the reason was an omega comma to Shen Wenling. That was the ultimate betrayal. The weak, quiet man who had stood loyally by his side for years was abandoning him. For someone else. For a pregnant omega. In that instant, Shen Wenling's pride shattered. His self-esteem, sky-high and unyielding, crumbled beneath the weight of something he had never expected to feel. Pain. Unprecedented, unbearable pain. As Gao Tu stood before him, frail but determined, Shen Wenling's mind went blank. The man who had never once allowed himself to be vulnerable, who had sworn to never care for anyone, suddenly found himself unable to breathe. A dull ache gripped his chest, sharp and suffocating, as though someone had cut away a part of him he didn't even know he needed. It wasn't just resignation. It wasn't just betrayal. It was loss. The kind of loss that left scars deeper than abandonment ever could. Because this time, it wasn't about being unwanted. It was about being left behind by someone he desperately wanted to stay. Shen Wenling had thought himself invincible. He had thought separation was something he could master. But watching Gao Tu walk away, he realized the truth. The pain of losing him was like having his own tail ripped away. That loyal presence, that quiet shadow, that steady figure who had once followed him everywhere. Gone! And the emptiness it left behind was unbearable. Shen Wenling hated omegas. He hated their manipulation. He hated their dependency. But most of all, in that moment, he hated himself. For needing someone. For caring. For aching so much that every breath felt like a punishment. And as he sat alone in his office, with only silence to keep him company, he finally understood what he had lost. Not just a secretary, not just a beta, but the one person who had made him feel like he wasn't destined to be abandoned forever. The story of Shen Wenling and Gao Tu isn't just about resignation, betrayal, or even love. It's about pride colliding with vulnerability. It's about the heartbreak of realizing that someone you took for granted can walk away, and the pain that lingers when they do. Because sometimes the people who mean the most to us are the ones we never thought we'd lose. And when they finally leave, the silence they leave behind is louder than any words ever spoken. If this scene broke your heart as much as it did mine, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more dramatic ABO love stories. And let me know in the comments, do you think Shen Wenling deserves another chance with Gao Tu?